and welcome to Supercharged, episode 189. I'm Adam Dotchis.
And I'm Tommy Houghton.
And today we're going to talk about some news stuff, because last week was heavy, and let's update ourselves on some other parts of the world that will hopefully be a little bit less depressing than gun violence. Although, I guess in a quick update, it seems to be, if you're a fan of gun control anyway, it seems to be headed in a positive direction. Trump certainly
let out his interesting self during a panel and kind of went very far left.
What was this? I thought he was just kind of pandering.
He may be, but he's saying a lot of things that I think would make the NRA very nervous. It's very strange, knowing how unhinged he is. But he's saying a lot of stuff about gun control now and how it's smart. It's very strange, because they always took the line of mental health being kind of like what we got to focus on. Mm-hmm. But mental health would have really done nothing in this instance.
Yeah, and I think it's weird that both sides have concentrated so much on mental health and actual issues or actual felonies and crimes that relate to guns in some way. I mean, obviously not if you were a victim of one.
Yeah, like he said,
maybe not obviously, but I don't think you should be.
He said, for example, the cops should have been able to take his guns away even if they weren't legally allowed to.
Well, it sounds like that's...
Which is insane.
Well, it sounds like that's kind of what's going to happen. I don't know I don't know when this goes into effect or if it has to be voted on. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they decided to, or maybe that was just in California. I probably should have looked this up. It just popped in my head now. But that you're going to get the, that if there's a situation where family members are expected to call in.
Yeah, they're called red flag laws.
That is it. Yeah. So is that just state?
Certain states have them. Yeah, that's not federal.
Oh, I thought there was a proposition for a federal one.
That is being proposed now. Okay. Is that could be federally employed.
Okay, so that's the news. We figured it out.
Of course, the NRA does not like that very much.
Well, no, they probably don't like the whole Dick's Sporting Goods thing.
Yeah,
which aside from
Walmart too.
Oh, Walmart did it too?
Yeah, Walmart pulled back and limited how much they'd sell and certain types of guns. Yeah, so it's...
The thing is, when I saw the headline for the first time for Dick's Sporting Goods, it sounded like they're just not going to sell guns anymore at all, which is what the Amazon Echo smart speaker... I was going to say its name, and then I realized I don't have to whisper, but I did anyway. Alexa. She... was putting on the screen of the boxy screen one that I have, that was the headline that Dick's Sporting Goods is not selling guns anymore. So good job there, Amazon. But so it seems like they're just not selling. It doesn't seem like they really changed anything at all.
Yeah, they're just not selling the problematic weapons. But
they're removing it from 35 Field and Stream or something stores. I don't. Mm-hmm. But they didn't sell automatics at Dick's Sporting Goods in the first place.
Yeah,
they didn't. They're only removing automatics from 35 stores in the country, which is better than having them. I guess. I really just don't understand. I'm not of the. I mean, I am of the opinion that no one needs a gun, but I don't. I don't feel like I would ever want to just take guns away from people because so many of them are adamant. I mean, like I'm not gonna push that agenda. I don't think it's realistic. Maybe that's the best way of putting it.
So you don't think Australia, what they did after their gun violence and basically like making guns almost impossible to get, would be a realistic thing here?
No. I don't. I mean,
no, I agree with you. But
I don't have a problem with what Australia is doing in any way. But I do not think that it would work here in the same way that I think we should legalize drugs, but I don't think that's something that the United States can handle.
And prostitution.
Yes, and prostitution. I mean, that one's just... I don't know. I mean, it has to be done slowly and over time. I don't think that if we're going to legalize all this stuff that we've decided is bad but doesn't have to be bad, I mean, we just put it in all these black and white contexts, and, drugs are fine. There were so many wonderful Donald Trump quotes this week. He's been pretty.
He's been let off the leash this week.
Well, it feels like he got a producer and he's pretending the producer is making him feel like he's on an episode of The Apprentice because he's talking like that.
Yeah, no, he's definitely. I don't know if this is him taking his medication or if this is a good week.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Yeah, it is.
But there were some wonderful lines, and he hasn't done anything important, so I'm fingers crossed that I'm not missing something terrible. But I mean, he kept his promise of instituting a TV rating system. I don't know how he went back in time and did that without us realizing it.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, and movies too.
He also
although that one wasn't as admirable.
He also insulted John McCain at CPAC again.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
I did enjoy how when so there's that CNN, which for some reason whenever CNN is accused of something, I'm just kind of rooting for it, and hopefully it ends up being Wolf Blitzer's fault.
Oh,
but
Wolf.
I just can't stand him.
When I was in college, my school would always host one of the presidential debates. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, the campus would be overrun with different news companies. So CNN was there, broadcasting live from one of our stages.
Where are they not?
And so, well, no, every network was there. So every network was.
It's like CNN. Yeah. There's nowhere CNN seems to not be today, and not necessarily to good effect.
So what they were doing is every network would broadcast live from the campus, so we could walk around and just see anyone we wanted to. So you could watch Chris Matthews over in one area and watch like Anderson Cooper in the other. Mm-hmm. So I got to actually shake Anderson Cooper's hand, and he talked to my friend on the phone. Anyway, Wolf Blitzer was walking around and he just seemed really stiff and out of touch. Mm-hmm. And someone was like, "Woo, Wolf, we love you." And he's like, "Thank you."
And he believed it?
I don't know. I think people are just like mocking him because he looks like he looks like a cartoon.
Yeah. Well, and he's named for what might as well be a cartoon as well.
His name is ridiculous.
Yeah. So there was that thing with the there was that thing with the CNN kid, the kid on CNN who was doing the town hall. Oh, yes. His last name started with a P or something. And he...
the scripted thing you're talking about.
Yeah, the scripted thing. The kid who was like, hey, CNN wanted to script my question when they wanted to just make it shorter. Mm-hmm. Anyway, eventually came out that CNN didn't do anything. Yeah, the kid was lying. And if you saw his interview with Tucker Carlson, he's like, the entire time he's shifting his eyes like, well, this is happening.
It looked like he was having a seizure, or like there was like a crazy thing happening above him that he was staring at.
Yeah, I mean, I was when I was imitating him, I was trying to do the eyes and talk at the same time, and I don't remember the specifics of what he said. He was actually rather articulate in his responses, but he was constantly shifting his eyes to the left or the right if the camera is flipping. I don't know what side is supposed to be the lying side, and I think that stuff is kind of bunk anyway. But when you see someone with a constant nervous tick like that, it's like, I mean, I'm just watching that, and I'm like, I feel like when I was watching the story, I didn't know if it was CNN or the kid who was lying. The way it was presented, it was unclear at that point. But I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, it's not CNN, is it? It's the kid was lying. I don't understand it sounds like the dad tried to cover it up.
Yeah, well, he messed with the metadata. Yeah, he messed with the email.
It wasn't malicious, which I actually do. I mean,
but what was he trying to do? Like, what else?
I think his kid lied, and the reason his kid lied may have been for one reason or another. And dad probably is like, I want to save my kid, and didn't realize that how technology works and that the metadata is going to be available for people. Mm-hmm. So that was fascinating to see happen. I mean, it's just, I don't know how long it's going to take people to learn how technology works in this way. Because
that's the thing, is like,
making these mistakes, and it's been going on for years.
Nowadays, how can you not realize people are going to find out?
Yeah, I mean, they're watching the news. I mean, even Tucker Carlson, to his credit, I was really surprised that he updated it and barely qualified. He was very clear. CNN was not in the wrong. But the reason
I know that Hannity also, like, his soul was eaten away when he had to issue that retraction.
But you can always tell that he like tries to word it somehow that it's not going to be, he's not going to be in trouble there. But with the reason I brought this up is because we were talking about interesting Trump quotes for the week. And when he was tweeting out about this and blaming CNN, no surprise there. He was also, and MSNBC might be worse. I just find it funny that it's like, let's just throw that in there. Yeah, they didn't do anything.
It's an aside, but they're worse.
Yeah, but there was that quote of him talking about guns and making weird sound effects. It was just.
There were a lot of takeaways from that, I think.
Yeah, there were a lot. It was an interesting week.
If Trump is able to survive 4 years in office, I shudder to think about the 8 years that could possibly be ahead of us. the highlight reel of his greatest hits is going to be like days long.
And he's going to be watching it and not realizing
Yeah.
whether or not someone making fun of him or not. I mean, the thing is, it probably would be the same, somewhat the same. I think that's the interesting thing about all of this is that he is pretty much... Would people like him for, or other people find obnoxious?
Yeah. There's something about him that you'll never. He said it himself. He could walk out and shoot someone in broad daylight, and he would still have support. In fact, that might actually increase his support among the crazies.
Depending on who he shot, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There was a big announcement for his campaign.
They're announcing his campaign already.
Yep.
Just before I judge this, did Obama do that too? I mean, I would judge Obama similarly.
Most politicians do announce the re-election campaigns fairly early in terms of planning.
I would think like you'd want to wait at least 2 years, but I guess it's been the same sort of trend with Black Friday, so they're getting started like 2 years in advance now.
What usually happens is, it's usually done really early. So I don't, as much as I would find anything to fault him for, that's pretty typical. But he announced that the guy that ran his digital side is now running his entire campaign.
That doesn't surprise me.
So it shows that they are doubling down on social.
Well, that's what's working.
Yeah, exactly.
They can say whatever they want on there. I mean, that's really all that it has ever been, is if you can go on a platform that becomes an echo chamber.
Yep.
I'm just curious to see what the social networks do during this next election, because they have the opportunity to essentially rig it.
Mm-hmm.
If they know now what power they have, and if they wanted to actually, I'm not trying to incite a conspiracy theory here, just FYI. But,
or are you?
No, I just think I think this is the difference between me and conspiracy theorists, is that I like to think about interesting things that could happen, but I don't like actually take them as fact just because they seem like they're probable. And I think that's important, and why I like to differentiate. Although I hope that everybody listening understands. I feel like we don't have people in the audience who don't get it.
Yeah.
But it's still, I would rather be safer than sorry. I don't want to find out that someone believed it because I said it with no backup and it was just an idea. But anyway, I think that Facebook and Google, and maybe less Google just because they don't seem to be trying to accomplish anything along these lines, but Facebook, Google, Twitter, etc.
Well, I mean, with Facebook too, Facebook, despite having like Zuck, who is weirdly presidential in his ambitions to like go around and travel the country, and he even dialed back his atheism, which he was a militant atheist for a long time. And then
as much as I hate Facebook, I'd much rather have him in office.
I mean, I agree. But what's funny is that it's clear that his political system of belief is very different from what Trump does. Yet Facebook, what they do is they put money above anything else, which is one of the big issues I have with them, is they basically send officials from Facebook to go sit with any major campaign and offer like how we can work for you. And they give you tips and tricks. And from what I was listening to, and a bunch of stuff like breaking down the election, or the presidential election, I should say, about how Trump's team utilized the Facebook internal like advice much better than Hillary did. Like they got entrenched in that system, and that's what helped them win. And the idea that they're deep in the conservative movement, they have a huge presence at CPAC. In fact, they actually got some flack for having a VR shooter after the mass shooting we just had. But I think that was just bad timing. But
yeah,
it's clear that Facebook is basically making money off this regardless of who wins. And I feel that they are...
It doesn't affect them.
Yeah.
Anyone who's making that much money, it just doesn't affect their lives at all.
Yeah.
What's happening in the world. And
well, they get entrenched on either side. Like I see them as weapons manufacturers. The guys, there are people who sold weapons to both sides in World War II, who made money off of war. And they make money off of political, like they make money off anything, but political discourse especially. They make money off of. They pander to both sides, saying, we're just the platform. You can utilize it to your, we're agnostic, but they completely found a way to dig into this whole system.
Yeah.
And profit off it the entire time.
And it's, I wonder, I wonder how it will impact them in the future, because a lot of the damage that Trump is doing that doesn't get reported on that much, the easiest one to point to, of course, is the State Department. And and it's just, it's like, well, I guess there's a whole thing with Ben Carson this week.
Oh,
I find it weird that everyone's kind of like putting that whole, for those of you who don't know, he spent $31,000 on furniture for his office, which you're only supposed to spend $5,000 without getting approval.
The comment was,
it's stupid, but
anyway, there's a whistleblower on his team who filed a report claiming that one of the quotes she was told was, "You can't even buy a decent chair for $5,000."
I bought a great chair for $700. It's a massage chair. I got it from China, I guess, and it's not. It's like. I mean, it's normally those chairs would be about $6,500, but I also hear people saying like, what chair is $5,000?
I know. What is this chair? What is this chair doing?
Well, no, but I hear people saying that, and I get it. If you're getting a normal chair, sure, but I could list 10 chairs that are over $5,000. They're fancy mechanical ones, but
well, yeah, but I mean, if it's like, are you talking like a Herman Miller Aeron chair or?
No, well, even those are not $1,000.
Yeah.
But there's really not a situation in which he should be spending that much on an office chair.
Especially when it's publicly funded. That's what drives me nuts.
Yeah, the thing is, it's like they're making this into a scandal though, and comparing it. They, as in like the more liberal side of the news media, tends to compare it to a scandal in the same way that they're talking about Kushner, and I like, it's $31,000 on office furniture. That is not a scandal along the lines of him losing his security clearance and many governments trying to figure out how to exploit him and blah blah blah, or whatever it is that they're saying he's doing now. So it's just, I would like to believe that there is a side that tones down the hyperbole, but there's not. It's just people just you're on the Republican or Trump side. I'm not really sure how that splits right now, because it's a little confusing.
It's
or you're the Democrat side, or you're just kind of floating around like.
So yeah, where things kind of stand now, it's kind of crazy that Trump has kind of co-opted the entire GOP. Mm-hmm. Which at first you had people that were basically like, in the National Review, which is kind of one of the stalwarts of the conservative movement, writes a article and makes your headline or your cover "Never Trump." It's pretty clear how a lot of people on the right feel about him. But then when he co-ops the party is basically saying, well, F it, we got to go along this river now. We know where our bread is buttered. We got to keep going. There was an interesting story I heard about from a woman who spoke out at CPAC recently. Mm-hmm. There was shockingly a Time's Up movement discussion at CPAC, which is the conservative kind of Woodstock, if you will, where all the big conservative players come out and hang out and talk and speak and feel good. So they had a panel with 3 women talking about the Me Too movement. And of course, the word feminist is very dangerous there, because feminazis and that whole movement is seen as being toxic to men and masculinity, and it's ridiculous. But the panel had a few points, and there was a woman who is very conservative, but basically said that she does not agree that she doesn't think that's cool how people cover up harassment within the GOP. Just because they're on the same team, it's cool to ignore it. And then she basically dropped a bombshell by saying, including our president. Mm-hmm. And basically saying that she thinks Trump is a harasser and an abuser.
I don't think I think with a lot of these, they're alleged, and that should be always how we,
sure,
innocent until proven guilty. I don't like the kangaroo court that we have these days. But that said, there is recordings of him talking about it.
Yeah.
It's not definitive evidence. It is in the realm of possibility that he was just bragging about something he never did.
Yes.
Imagine that. But nevertheless, it's like, I think it's fair if he's going to put that out there, mm-hmm, for people to assume that he's at least harassing women because he said he did it.
Yeah. So when she says, I don't like the way he treats women, that this man has a lot of accusations against him, why should someone like Al Franken resign, and we still have Trump in office? And
I mean, I agree with that sentiment, but at the same time, it's like that Al Franken shouldn't be held to a different standard than someone else who did the same thing. But
see, Franken shouldn't have resigned. Like, he resigned under pressure from him. Which I get, because they don't want anyone that people can point to on the Democratic side and say, like, see, you, well, how can you accuse this stuff if you got someone on your own team? So I get that he was a victim of the entire process, but
but also, if he did, then that has to be dealt with accordingly. Like, I don't think he should be let off the hook just because.
He could have been punished in other ways.
Wasn't.
So
it's just everyone. I don't know. The other thing is, it's like nothing has been made clear about any of these. I mean, we've had a lot of accounts that have been brought up. I guess. I mean,
I think people.
I don't know what you really do in this situation, because it's a very difficult thing to prove, and most of the time you can't prove it. It's all circumstantial evidence.
Yes, and most time people would rather resign than have to deal with either being dragged. And I think often there's probably a lot of truth in what the comments are, especially knowing how just the political era a lot of these people who are accused and kind of came from.
Mm-hmm. But there seems to be a lot of lies surrounding them as well. Which I know there was definitely some controversy over Al Franken's accusations, but even with Roy Moore, there were forged letters, and there was enough stuff that wasn't fake. But people are like, I don't know if they're feeling pressured to do it, like they need to get this guy and they'll do anything.
Or on the other end too, there was a fake accuser trying to like out the Washington Post for
right.
But then again,
with the Roy Moore thing, that woman who went in the Washington Post figured it out.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I love watching that footage of her being like. But basically being found out and her like having to quietly walk away and be like, oh, never mind.
What's the name of the guy who runs that like Acorn or whatever?
Oh, not Acorn. Yes, his name has escaped me for good reasons. But James,
the pimp guy.
Yes,
he dressed up as a pimp in his earlier days.
He does the conservative sting operations to help prove that the liberal media is wrong.
And he went through and pretended that this Washington Post thing worked out and re-edited their confrontation of him.
Yeah, he said it went exactly as planned.
Yeah,
that the paper fact-checked and proved that you were trying to sting them, and they actually figured out who you were because you did such a shit job of actually trying to hide your person. They used your real name, and like a year before, she said she had a GoFundMe page saying she wanted to go and expose the lies of the liberal media, and that she worked for this guy. It's like, really?
It's like they're not even trying anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's complete laziness. The point about the woman speaking out at CPAC about Trump was that she got booed. And security whisked her away, afraid she's going to get attacked. And that another panelist came up and said, like, thank you for saying that, but would never publicly say it. So it's the idea that most parties are very tribal, especially in this instance where, since they're in power, they're willing to go down this person that's co-opted the party. And I would wager that most people in office disagree with him, and the kind of entrenched politicians who have been part of the system for a long time probably shudder the fact that he's there. I imagine Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan are probably
Mitch McConnell cannot stand him.
I'm sure I
kind of enjoy.
I know. I love the fact that they have to kiss his ass and go around with this, and they probably loathe each other. But the fact that they're willing to go down this path because they're complicit in this whole thing. But when you look at the rank and file, it's clear that he's popular. If you look at the most polls that come out, among GOP, especially in like the South and his like real, powerful states where, it's the deep South or the kind of the blue collar states where he won pretty handily. He's, 80%, 85% approval ratings among Republicans. Among Democrats, he's like at the 30s or 20s.
I don't understand how he's anything with Democrats.
I know it's.
I don't understand what it is that people don't see about the way. I mean, like, I get the positive part that people have because he's going through and making waves and messing with the status quo and whatnot.
But only shallowly, because he hasn't made much change at all besides just appointing people and saying he's going to support the Second Amendment, even though he's not really doing that very well now, and fighting for unborn fetuses.
Yeah, but it amazes me that no one ever looks at what is actually being accomplished, what is happening, how things work.
I think it's because most people only stake their goals on a few things. Do they get a paycheck each month, and are their religious rights being preserved? It's like people only have a small number of things they want or care about. It's that's why we have so many low information voters out there.
Aren't getting a paycheck each week, and he doesn't give a shit.
No, he doesn't, but they think he does. They think the tax thing, but that thing is like they hang these beliefs and their feelings on like a certain standard of like, again, the echo chamber of like, are things getting done that we believe are good? And It doesn't matter.
The thing that is confusing to me is that, I mean, like, when you have money, it makes more sense for your, money purposes to align with the Republican Party in many cases. If you have more, they tend to, allow you to keep more of it. But then it's generally not wealthy people. I mean, there are a lot, I guess if you look at this country, it's always more poor people voting for either party, but it seems that the Democrats will do more for the people who are voting for the Republicans in majority.
That's actually, there was a very famous book called What's the Matter with Kansas that discusses this. And growing up in Kansas, I can see this because my parents were part of this perfect con almost, where basically how is it that the Republican Party was able to co-opt the middle and lower class people who clearly don't benefit from their policies in the same way that they do under Democrats. It's very strange,
especially under Trump.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why. The book is actually absolutely worth reading and kind of investigating. And some of the things have been poked at over the years, but it raises a lot of good questions, especially about how the message of this is where the psychology play comes in, and how messaging, and then you look at how you have so many people within both sides, but especially on the right, being able to brand things in certain ways. Mm-hmm. The Democrats really suck at branding things. Oh, they really suck at messaging.
Suck at a lot of things.
I think one of their biggest problems is unifying under a concise central message, and having any teeth to what they're trying to do. Conservatives and Republicans are killer when it comes to being able to brand things. Yeah. And that's kind of what they do, is they're able to build this aspirational kind of quality to it, where it's freedom, it's
the American dream.
Yeah, the American dream. And I think, what was it? It was Marco Rubio who gave this speech that I'm like, this basically sums up why people vote Republican who have no real interest in terms of their own self-interest voting.
Yeah. And
that way. And it basically was like, you may be, I don't think he said poor house, but basically you're living, in a small area, but that if you work hard and if you strive to achieve that big house down the street that your neighbor has, you can look to him and say, well done on your hard work, I'll be moving next to you soon. Mm-hmm. And it's this complete bullshit where it's like, yeah, I'm going to give the guy that worked hard for his money the tax breaks and the incentives to really, achieve his goals, because I'll be there next to him someday. And it's a con. It's never going to happen for a lot of these people, for most of them.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't, even under the Democrats, if the Democrats actually do anything to help, which I think their track record is quite a bit better. It's not great on either side of the equation, but I mean, like, if you're trying to pick the better case scenario for the quality of living when you are, upper middle class or below, you're gonna get more out of voting Democrat. And I would love if we had more choices and it wasn't like this at all. Yeah. I'm not even saying, like, I'm not even trying to encourage, like, one party better than the other. It's just, even though I have my opinions, it's just, in this situation, it's just weird. And it's weird that, wealthy people vote Democrat if they're, if there's some sort of, I mean, I guess it's not weird, because if you're saying, like, I have enough, I'm okay with giving it up. It's not weird in that sense. But if you're thinking in the same terms of, like, what do I benefit most from personally in my vote, it doesn't make sense after you get into the upper class area to vote Democrat.
It really goes down to aspirational, the same side on the other end of it, which is, I have enough and I want to see everyone taken care of.
And it's just weird how it's the opposite.
It really stems from an element of trust. It really shapes how you view the world. If you believe that people are inherently bad and that anyone in power is going to be corrupt.
People aren't inherently anything, though.
That's the thing, is it's
we define people.
So the view is, if you view that people are inherently untrustworthy, you're not going to want them to run your government. You're not going to want them to control your money. You also don't trust them. You're going to see people that get handouts as being con artists, as being lazy, and you want people to work hard. So it's a very traditional view of, if the government is big and gives people money, they're going to be lazy and bad and not work hard. And I worked hard, so why should you tell me what to do? On the other side of it, Democrats have an overall view that people do want to do quote unquote good. And if you give them the resources and ability, even when they fall in hard times, they will do good.
Yeah, and they're both wrong, and they're both right.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
They're just shitty people.
It's
and they're good people.
It's viewpoints, and
in terms of how we view people, anyway, it's circumstantial in a lot of ways, and it's to say that this worldview is correct is always going to be wrong.
Exactly.
It says anyone is anything, and if we keep binaries are easy, but they're always wrong.
Yeah,
they're always they're almost always so wrong that it's very problematic.
And usually those viewpoints hide a deeper seated kind of view of, I want to keep my money and I'll keep it however I can and I'll justify it however. Or it's also distrust of, well, communism is bad, therefore anything that resembles that is bad, therefore, yeah. But it's almost all anecdotal. There's very little evidence that says either system works. And you look at like supply side economics, which the Republicans, have what dreams over every night. That's been disproven over and over and over and over again. And that's basically where if you give the wealthy giant tax cuts, the money is going to trickle down to everyone else. And it's complete bullshit. The fact that income inequality has grown so precipitously over the past 30, 40 years is a sign that's not going to happen. And Kansas, my home state, did a giant experiment in that. Sam Brownback, the governor of Kansas, cut the corporate tax rate and all the tax rates down as low as he possibly could. And in response, the state lost a lot of money because they weren't, his inspiration was, if we make the tax rate so low, it will basically make everyone move to Kansas to do business. And in doing so, that will make more money come in. But the math doesn't work. And then also companies will have more money to reinvest in infrastructure. And it doesn't work that way at all. And the state of Kansas is one of the worst when you look at their schooling system now. Basically, they had to cut public funding for schools.
Florida is not too different.
Kansas is almost bankrupt. It's insane how Sam Brownback, and he got reelected by a narrow margin because he said the reason his plan wasn't working is because it hadn't been long enough and the tax cuts were still not deep enough. And also to let you, do you know whose headquarters is in Kansas? Koch Industries.
Oh, doesn't Amazon have a place in Kansas too? I always see it show up. Oh no, that's Kentucky.
Yeah, no, Koch Industries, the Koch brothers, they live in Kansas, in my hometown, and they drive a huge part of the GOP in Kansas.
I'd like to do a deep dive into the Koch brothers at some point because all you ever hear about them is bad stuff. They're also very philanthropic, which I imagine there's some agenda to that. I'm just curious, what is a realistic picture of who these people are?
My sister worked for them for a while, and a lot of people, Koch Industries is one of the biggest employers in town. My hometown's 700, 800,000 people. Koch Industries is one of the largest employers in the state. And so a lot of people work for them. And I grew up the school I went to was a few miles away from their headquarters. And yeah, they are incredibly powerful in town and very influential. And I've heard interviews with them where they try to justify their insane beliefs. And this is the worst part, is they're actually more libertarian than conservative. They have very little opinions when it comes to social issues. But the people they support, because business is more important, they support conservative causes because that aligns with their business interests as opposed to their social. And they have a really great PR companies. They have so many lawyers and PR people that they're able to spin messages in insane ways. But they have a really interesting family drama that we could actually be fun to discuss because their family drama is one of the strangest things. Oh. And I believe they're also the second largest privately held corporation in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. Oh, privately held.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they would never, ever want their, yeah.
I understand that, though. Especially if I were up to any of the things I'm at least aware of that they're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we'll have to do that at one point. Before we get in, shift over to the news because we should definitely do that soon.
Yes. So much for a lighter episode.
Yeah. I think this was lighter. It wasn't. We weren't talking about people dying.
That's true.
But what was it? Oh, we have coming up in the near future an episode with an expert on the universal basic income, which I did a lot of research on this, and I've been waiting to do the show for 2 months. So I'm excited about that. That should be at the end of the month. We also have someone from Space 10, which we're going to be talking about future technology there, which is always a favorite topic of mine that I think is coming up before UBI. And I also figured out, I'm glad that he ended up having a family emergency and had to postpone. We were supposed to do that episode last week. And I'm glad that happened, actually, because...
Because you hate his family?
No, because I realized how I even found them in the first place. I was when I was looking for interface components for the game that I'm working on, the computer version one, not the card game. They have a JavaScript framework for making chat conversations, and like you can turn a HTML form into a conversation with. It can be a small amount of code, but you do have to really get into it a lot more than I was expecting to make it look and function the way you want. But I dug back into that yesterday, and I was like, oh, this is from them. This is how I found out about them, why I went to their website, why I was like, oh, we should get someone from there on their show. They're doing all these cool things. But it was actually because of a JavaScript framework, which is really wonderful. It was, I think they could use a little bit of an update to the documentation, because there's a few things that aren't documented or like really organized in a weird way. Like the first stuff you'd want to know is actually about 25% into the documentation, in terms of like how the form functions work.
Mm-hmm.
So that was weird, but it's really phenomenal. I don't want to shit on them for it. I think what they do is great. I was just confused. But I would say this is the case with most documentation. Google is notorious for writing stuff that is often wrong and doesn't make sense.
There is a project I'm testing that I can't talk about in specifics, but basically it's a audio thing, and you get free, or not free, free. You get basically Play Store credit for doing it.
Oh, yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, and so...
But is that bad that I just said that?
No.
Okay. You can talk about it with me, but you can't talk about it to everybody.
I found that when you take it, it would limit you from being able to like abuse the system, because it gave you, I think, X amount of dollars or cents or whatever every answer you gave. But I found certain code words freaked it out and made it reset. So you could basically do it for, an infinite amount of time, just keep saying the same word over and over again for every response, and it would generate. And so I kept doing it and trying to find the limits of what it did. They eventually patched it, but it was interesting how for 3 days, it worked interestingly, and I got like a bunch of Play Store credit, so thanks.
Yay, thank you, unknown company we're not saying the name of. But speaking of something similar in a way that I'm not going to specify, it looks like self-driving cars are finally going to get onto the road.
Yeah.
That was the most exciting.
As soon as next month.
Ish news that let's see, April 2nd this is in California, and the DMV got approval to put them on the road without a driver, and you can have 2 separate licenses. One is for testing purposes, which hopefully that's the starting one. Not that they haven't been testing for a long time, and not that. I don't know. I can understand being scared of being in a car that's driving itself, just because it's frightening to do something that doesn't seem like it should work.
Mm-hmm.
That's so foreign of a concept to you, especially when you're not behind the wheel. So I can understand not wanting to get in one, not wanting to allow them on the road. However, I think is a lot stranger of an opinion. Because if you look statistically, yes, they do make a mistake. Yes, they don't know the difference between who to hit when it's a grandmother or a child. Although
BMW made that call.
Did they? Do they actually have logic for that now?
Yeah, that it always the hierarchy, the biggest one is that it always favors the driver over the outsider.
Oh, but no, if the car's going to go into a head-on collision and it has to do the trolley experiment.
Mm-hmm, which people. But the fact that BMW even made a choice about who, if there's an accident and you either risk killing the driver or killing the passenger or the pedestrian, it would choose the pedestrian.
Yeah, as it should from a business standpoint.
But then that makes it dangerous, like from an AI, where basically people then mocked BMW for, the idea of like a BMW just plowing gleefully to people.
Yeah, well, that kind of goes with the BMW manual.
They should have perhaps
speed on purpose to get points.
I wouldn't surprise me. Like they should have perhaps waited for another like low budget car maker, like Kia, to decide that first and then piggyback off that. But yeah, it doesn't really help BMW's image of like basically making a point system now.
It looks like there are a bunch of companies that are going to be going out on the road in California next month.
Mm-hmm. They've already begun getting the applications ready.
Yeah, I don't have a full list here, but it looks like I didn't know NVIDIA was working on a self-driving car, but they're one of them. Google is one of them, of course. Waymo. There's a third one. Is Facebook doing it?
Uber and Lyft.
Ford.
Yeah, a lot of motor companies.
But Uber and Lyft aren't designing their own cars, are they?
They're using third parties, but they are.
I suppose they'll have licenses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think this is more. I think this list is more of like places that are actually making the cars. Although I didn't know Waymo was making. Well, I don't.
Maybe Waymo.
I'll be honest. I don't really know anything about Waymo.
Waymo is Google.
Oh, Waymo is Google?
Yeah, it's their driving brand.
Oh, I wonder why it says both of them in here.
That's a good question.
That's really weird. Okay.
Or we should say Google is not driving. It's Waymo is under Alphabet.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, look at that. Learning new things all day. That's happening. That's I'm happy about it.
Yeah, no, I am too. I think it's about damn time.
And just to I think when we started this show as this show and not going all the way back to Lifehacker, but in the beginning of the show we did an episode on self-driving cars, and we're talking about like, oh yeah, we hope it comes soon, deciding the pros and cons of it and everything like that. And it just felt like it was going to happen faster. But yeah, I mean, because they were working. Yeah, I mean, they're still working. I mean, they're working even better now. I think it's just a matter of regulations are going to be the challenge and kind of figuring out how they fit into the economy. Yeah, I mean, people are going to go nuts about this when they start seeing it happen, when they see a car driving around with no one in it. I'm really intrigued when when do you think, when the ghosts are here? When do you think one of us will see one in the streets of LA? I don't know, but I probably I'm probably going to see it later than anybody just because I drive so little, but I hope it's soon. But you're around, like you can look outside. Like what point do you think you'll spot a car just driving itself? I mean, it's really hard to say. I'm trying to think of the last time something like, I mean, they're going to be going on the road right away. It's not like medical marijuana where it's going to take a year for it to actually happen. April 2nd, they can start driving. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I would hope I see it by May. I would love to. But I feel like it's probably going to be more like, I'm going to hope for it in May. I'm not going to see one in May. I'm assuming I'm not going to see one in April either. But then in like July, I'll have forgotten that this is even happening, and I'll see a car with no driver and be like, what? Or someone sitting in the back seat. Yeah. I would prefer no one's in it the first time I see it. Yeah, that'd be nice. Because that would be hilarious. And anyone, if you are in the Los Feliz area in a self-driving car as a passenger in the back seat, please feel free to just take a nap in the back so it looks like no one's there. That's just for my sake. I'd enjoy that. So I can enjoy that. But I'm hoping that I do see one in the first month or so when they'll likely be running around without anyone in them. Fingers crossed. Do you think that like Lyft and Uber will, I guess, get those on the road for passengers? They were testing in Philly, they tested in Philly and in Arizona. Arizona's it's so weird sometimes. I think Arizona, they tested in 2 cities, and they made sure to test, and there was always a driver in the car who was just not doing anything, just for safety and for legal reasons. I could see them starting this. I don't know if they'd put full passengers. I don't know if they'd let you opt into an experiment and get it done cheaper. I could see people getting pissed or like something going wrong and then like suing or whatever. So I could see them doing this as like a pilot program. Yeah. Without launching first. I think they will probably want to get a lot of data out. But I'm sure they're racing to have it done. I wouldn't be surprised if instead of a EULA, they have like an actual agreement you sign. It would not shock me. Yeah. Yeah, before they probably should. I mean, because the thing is, my opinion of this is, I mean, I'm assuming Uber's cars are going to have like rape and kidnap features, so I'm not going to go in those. But I mean, they're going to have a lot less complaints when a lot fewer complaints when suddenly. But there's no one there, sir. Yeah. I don't know why that happened. No, they have a new CEO who actually seems like a really good guy, or at least is really good at. I think compared to Travis, I think it's really easy to be seen as a better person. Yeah, but I mean, like I actually like him so far. That's good. I haven't seen anything. He hasn't blown up in an Uber at someone and getting serendipitously, he's surreptitiously recorded, or he's like weirdly philosophical, and I mean not weirdly, like in a way that I find charming, and it's just weird that he works at Uber. But I think Uber is probably trying to find the opposite of Travis Kalanick, and they did. And so far, I've been really impressed with him. Have you ever popped your collar You think they asked that?
Probably, yeah. That was probably the first question. That's like, if you ever answer yes to the question, like, get out.
Oh my God, I hope that happened. I would just love to watch some of this stuff. I've seen a few controversies happen at companies. I've seen, I saw, I don't know if I should say that out loud. I saw somebody get booted out of their own company.
Ooh.
Who was running it.
That'd be interesting.
I didn't understand what was happening at the time. And then when I did, and thought back on it, I was like, that was a lot less dramatic looking than I would have expected.
Was it just like paperwork signing and discussing?
It was more like a discussion. I don't think the paperwork was signed at this point. This was when this person found out.
Oh, wow.
And I was sitting like across the office, and it was in like one of those fishbowl conference rooms. You eventually find a reason to regret someday. I could come up with so many real stories of that one. For example, I didn't regret this. This was wonderful, but I think everyone else was very uncomfortable when they thought about it. But when I was at Bright Cove, we had to look at porn for work to find out if it was to determine with the legal department. Our team would meet about porn, and I had a manager who was kind of like my mom's age at the time. Well, I guess she still is. But it was like watching porn with my mom, which was weird.
That would be very uncomfortable.
So there is, it was not as uncomfortable as I would have thought. But whenever I think about it, it's like, that's super strange that was something I did.
At the time, it probably normalizes. There was a guy I know.
But this was like weird porn too. It wasn't like tits out or whatever. It wasn't like softcore. It was world records for the longest anal squirt. There was one where eels were going in and out of different holes of a woman. They were like little eels. I don't know what those are called.
Huh.
Baby eels? I don't know if they're baby or they're just like normally small.
Wow.
Yep. So these were put on the platform, and we had to determine whether or not it was appropriate. And ultimately, there was a very long discussion over these sexual world record things, like the anal squirt.
What was the
only one that got taken down.
Why?
I don't know, because as far as I'm concerned, it was the least disturbing.
The way
they filmed it, it looked like there could have been a hose behind her.
What was the record?
Oh, I don't remember. It was in like 2006.
It's like, so I'm sure it's been broken by then. But what was like? Was
I don't know if anyone's trying to break.
Was it feet, yards, like miles?
It was far. It was the room we're in. It was like probably twice as far as this room.
Damn.
That's why I think there was a hose, because it was from a profile.
You can't trust people setting anal squirt records. I mean who can you trust?
It looked the spray, the way that it was spraying was so out that it looked like it was coming out of a butt. Like the projection coming out of a anal sphincter looked accurate to me. However, if you get the right water pressure on the hose,
you're right. The right angle. Yep.
You could definitely fake it. You could also just put something that replicated a sphincter on top of the hose. If you really, obviously they were going out of their way for this. I'm just not entirely sure where they would have put the hose. So and also the whole thing, it's really hard to tell how real it was, or if it was real, how she did this.
That's impressive.
How
do you train for that?
I guess Kegels, anal Kegels.
Wow.
And regular douching. It's if you've ever had an enema or like washed your butt out or whatever, you have some idea of how stuff comes out of you.
Sure.
Or even if you've had diarrhea, and seen the toilet afterwards. I'm sure this is it. Do you want us to go back talk about guns now, everybody?
I would be intrigued what would happen if you had really bad diarrhea and you just stored it up, and then you instead of sitting down, you just bent over at like a 90-degree angle and just let it rip how far it would go.
Yeah, I don't know, but you know from experience, if you've used your butt with anything liquid, which everyone probably has at this point, it sprays. So the fact that she was able to get a reasonable stream out forward, I don't know. Maybe she was using some sort of...
if you're clenching and you're able to release as you clench, if you can release and clench at the same time.
Now I feel like I want to try this, but I won't.
You'd have to really line a room with plastic or find a space outside.
Yeah. You could do it in the bathtub and just try to get an idea.
That's true.
And then, hopefully you clean things out of yourself first before...
Yeah, that's the hope.
We're talking about water here, not diarrhea. that's pushing it a little bit.
There was a guy who I met who was his job. He did airbrushing and retouching for porn, and he said the worst thing he had to deal with was shitty assholes.
Yeah, I bet.
He said that's probably the worst thing.
It's weird though, because I mean, like, it's not that hard to get the. I mean, like, there's a difference between not having visible shit and being perfectly clean.
Yeah,
but.
He said some people like they didn't wipe carefully, or they just didn't. Usually people do enemas before porn.
You don't even have to do enemas. I mean,
people usually do.
The porn process is
especially for anal. Taking
Imodium just in case your lunch makes it down there or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually watched a video on this, which I don't think I need to explain what that was for. I mean, it actually wasn't for sexual purposes. I'm well educated on that because I was a sex educator when I was in college. But it's hard to explain this project quickly, but it has something to do with butts. And I was doing some research. I came across this video of some male porn star who was explaining how he cleans himself out, and he takes Imodium. He does like this he washes the butt out through by like squirting something, an enema into the butt, but also takes some sort of medicine to induce bowel movements,
like a laxative of some kind.
Yeah, so he starts in the morning and then basically doesn't eat all day, and then does an extra cleaning like an hour before or something. Then also takes Imodium so that anything that does go in him or hasn't, just to slow down that whole process.
Sure.
So I'm like, so when you say someone had to touch up a shitty asshole in porn, I'm like, it seems like they go through a lot.
I was saying not everyone is as professional as he is.
I guess not. But at the same time, it's like in terms of visually looking clean, it's really not hard.
It really isn't.
5 minutes.
It really isn't. The smell may be bad or like the texture, but you can at least look good.
Even the smell shouldn't even be good. Should be bad. I mean, this is not really the show for this, but I mean, it's basically what are the glycerin? It's not an enema, but it's some sort of glycerin thingy that is not problematic like an enema can be. And then they have one, it's like you can put it in as a suppository, or there's one you can squirt, and the squirt one is like if you need to take a shit right now. They're not necessarily used for sexual purposes. They're like people who need to poop. And then they have the glycerin one, which you're supposed to put in and then you shit in an hour. And sometimes I believe
a suppository,
you shit the suppository out
as
well, which is I think good for people to know if they need that, because you don't want, if sometimes a vaguely brown white thing coming out would frighten some people if they're not expecting it.
I could see that,
I guess. But then so you have those two things, and then you just then rinse out with some water, and you're good enough to go, most likely, that you're not going to have this problem your friend was talking about.
Yeah.
Like it's not hard. And it's not uncomfortable. I don't think. I mean, like, I personally don't think. I'm not saying. I can speak from experience that I don't think it's uncomfortable. It's just unless you find peeing out of your asshole uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Which is, it's weird, but you can get used to anything.
Yeah, that's true.
There are people who do.
Have you heard about this malicious use of artificial intelligence forecasting, prevention, and mitigation?
No. Is this the story you were trying to think of?
A giant report came out a few days ago from let's see.
Oh, I think I did hear about this.
It was a 100-page report. Oops, no, go back.
Who did it?
It was composed of 26 experts from 14 different institutions and organizations, including Oxford University's Future of Humanity Institute, Cambridge University Center for the Study of Existential Risk, Elon Musk's OpenAI, and the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
Yeah, I remember EFF and Cambridge and Elon Musk. Yeah. I don't remember the first one.
Oxford's Future of Humanity Institute.
I wonder if it just got left out of the. Yeah, I think
It basically prints.
I saw the article you're looking at, actually.
It basically predicts a pretty bleak futuristic hellscape. Because as much as there are great things that will come out of AI and the rise of automated systems, it can also be abused by terrorists, hackers, malicious actors, and increase the ability to spearfish, Trojan, spam, attack people, whether it be gaining information, doxing people, whatever, or all the way up to like a terrorist attack, attacking infrastructure. So they don't paint a horrible doom and gloom scenario for the entire 100 pages, but they do offer a lot of suggestions for how to make things better.
Because what's going to happen is the hyperbole and panic and whatnot is going to be what is reported in the news. It's that's what everyone's worried about with AI, and there's definitely concern for it.
Sure,
that is legitimate.
Well, I sent you a photo I saw while driving, or I took while driving, on a billboard of a robotic arm that's like, hire me.
Yeah. So I think my response was, it's begun.
Yeah.
But
I would love to know if the robotic arm placed the ad as well.
I would. Probably not, but maybe one of its friends did. It's not out of the realm of possibility. As I've been building this game and creating a person to talk to, basically, as the main core of it, it's been. I keep feeling like before I get, once I get enough of it put together where it's kind of like capable of responding the way that I want to in many, many, many situations instead of the specific ones I've been focusing on. I want to create my own virtual assistant that I can type to on the computer, because most of the time I don't want to talk to a speaker.
Yeah.
Just because sometimes it's nighttime and I don't want to make noise, or I'm tired and I don't feel like talking, which will surprise most everyone. But there are many times during the day where I'm just like, I just don't want to. I'm just exhausted and I don't want to talk, because it's uncomfortable. It's like mildly painful.
Yeah.
I think everybody has been there before. And then there's using your phone, and so I try to keep my phone away from me most of the time, so I don't like get distracted by notifications, and so like most of the tools that you would use to interact with your smart home are out there, but I'll usually be on my computer working, and if I want to change the lights, or if I want to send someone a birthday postcard, or do a bunch of other things that, obviously smart home stuff is common across all assistants, but if I wanted to do stuff that they don't generally do, that are specific to me and integrated with services that I use that wouldn't normally be part of Google Home or whatever, I would like to be able to do that. And Mark Zuckerberg did it, and I'm not I'm not quite the coder he is, but he's also not quite the coder everyone thinks he is.
Yeah.
So, and I'm I just made something that is more complicated than what I'm talking about. So, I think that is in the realm of possibility for me, and for more people than might imagine. I just like. I want to. I think this technology is really cool, and there's a lot of good stuff that can be done with it. And I hope that there's more reporting in the news going on that is that at least talks about, like, this is the problem with AI, but this is the solution to that problem.
Yeah,
I think we should be really more afraid of quantum computing in terms of what could go wrong there. Combining that with AI is another frightening prospect, but we need to be more concerned about that, because AI can, no matter how good it gets, if it can't iterate fast enough to break security algorithms and can't figure out how to do that in a way that will subvert humans, it's not really a huge concern in that area. And ultimately, computer security is one of the biggest things that we need to be worried about, because now everything is in there, and I know very personally what can happen when computer security is not up to the standard it should be. I googled myself this morning. I can't remember what. I think I was looking for something specific to see if something. Darren, who I think everybody knows, so I can just say that. Darren posted this thing on Instagram that said his net worth was $7 million, and it was on this like networth.com site.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's just for celebrities, and he's not on there. I went to look at it. I was like, oh, is there like a weird generator? Or I was just curious what it would say about me. That if I wanted to know if my public information was on there or not. My net worth is not much at this point, but I'm just curious what Google thought, or what if there was any information like that on there. But I searched the site and he's not on there, so he must have just doctored the screenshot as a joke. But I could not figure out which person he copied. So I will have to ask him about that. But I Googled my name with net worth and I found people talking about me getting hacked on Reddit. And there was nothing new. It's the usual sympathy. What do I do? But it's always the first comment is like, well, that's what you get when you use Coinbase, or some version of that. And I'm like, yeah, well, I know that now.
I'm curious where he found this. I want to see if I'm on here.
Yeah, I'll look it up. But let's do a couple more stories because we got to call it a day. I think we're over an hour already.
Yeah.
Apparently there's an urban cat population crisis, which doesn't surprise me.
Yes.
But I didn't know that was the case. But apparently they are creating tools now. The University of Guelph. Am I pronouncing that right? Is it really Guelph?
It sounds right.
All right. Have developed a dynamic population model that crunches accumulated data from several sources to predict overall cat numbers in a community. The promising new approach could improve the way urban cat populations are understood and managed, which I suppose means preventing them from making babies more often, in communities around the world. So it's always interesting to see science get into this sort of thing.
I one of the big things.
No one else is solving it.
One of the big things that people probably don't know is I am a giant animal person, and I volunteered for many years doing TNR in LA for cats, which is the trap, neuter, return model. It is the most successful way to handle populations. It also is the most humane. What you do is you go out and you trap cats, a la Wile E. Coyote trying to trap an animal. Mm-hmm. You then take the cat, get it to be sterilized, and then you release it and let it live out its natural life. If the cats are young enough, we take them back to a sort of shelter and we socialize them and make them happy, friendly baby kitties that people can adopt. After a certain point, usually between 14 weeks and a year, they are unable to really be socialized and will be forever kind of feral. And if they are like that, we will release them back because they would never be happy in a home. So colonies die off pretty quickly that way. But the challenge is that populations explode when you have horrible groups, and I don't mean to use this because I agree with their mission overall, but the people behind it are awful. The Audubon Society. People that are giant bird fans think the cat should die because they believe cats are decimating local wildlife populations in terms of birds. And yes, stray cats do eat birds. However, killing a bunch of cats is really bad. No one wants birds to be killed, and no one wants, at least on our side, wants cats to die. So there's a middle ground, which is TNR is found to drastically reduce populations when it's done effectively. What the Audubon Society did was they basically made it where you could not have TNR recommended by the city of LA. Mm-hmm. Which, if the city of LA practiced TNR, that would be huge. But they can't. And they can't even advocate it because the Audubon Society sued and said, well, you can't advocate this without doing an environmental impact study, which costs a lot of money. So it's put in stalemate for a while. Anyway, so I've been part of this discussion for a long time. I've been trapping animals for a long time. I love it. But yes, having any model that can help shape this, because no one wants a bunch of stray animals in the street. Mm-hmm. But every major city across the world has these issues, especially in Europe. So anything that can help reduce dog and cat populations that are just exploding, it would be really helpful. And the other thing that would help too is if there is a way to do non-surgical sterilization for pets.
Yeah.
Getting a shot, because the hardest part for doing...
That should be possible.
They've been working on it for a while, and it's honestly probably going to happen the next few years. Mm-hmm. But the challenge is it's really, really, really hard to do it because it takes a lot of manpower. You got to go out and find the animals, trap them, which is a pain in the ass.
Well, why not have animal services do some of this stuff?
Because, again, they can't right now.
What do you mean?
Because of the environmental impact study in LA with the Audubon Society I just mentioned.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at another news story.
Oh, that's okay.
To make sure that we got to it.
The Audubon Society basically would rather have the default issue with strays be take them back to a shelter and let them die.
I don't understand how that benefits anyone.
They're inconsiderate assholes.
Okay.
There's a few rich people that love birds so much and think that cats eat birds. And yes,
people love birds. Birds are like gross. I
No,
mean,
but I mean-
I don't want birds to die, and I don't have a problem with birds or people liking birds necessarily.
Yeah.
But it's. I mean, birds are really dumb, and birds shit on you. I
like all animals.
So do cats sometimes.
I like animals. No animal should be killed unnecessarily.
Yeah, I just think it's weird to prefer certain animals in terms of which populations should we protect.
I mean, the thing is, I would love it if there were no strays and birds lived. Like, I would love that. But needlessly killing animals is also not only hurting your cause, because doing that method of just capturing is so wildly ineffective. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, the hope is that the injunction will basically lift it and that animal services can actually begin doing TNR, which is effective, but it's still manpower because you got to go trap the animal, which takes time. It takes a lot of time to trap animals. I've gone and done it a lot.
If they're trapping them anyway, like they should just give them that shot when it's ready.
The idea is, if you trap them and give them the shot and you can release them again, if you can do it in one setting, now the process is you trap them, take them to a place, it's like a 3-day process for one cat. And so it's hard.
Well, and now that they're done creating this model of how to find them, maybe they can work on trying to get that.
So no, it's exciting being able to build models. Data can help, and if there's a surgical or non-surgical tool to help sterilize, that would be huge. So that's the hope, is that in the coming years, feral stray populations will go down.
Yeah, that would be good. A couple of other things before we wrap up. The HoloLens can now measure your heart rate by scanning your face. It is still $3,000 and not and a developer kit.
And it's crazy it took that long, because Kinect could always do that.
It's also like, my first reaction to this is this news? I wrote an article about the iPhone doing this in 2011.
Yeah, the Kinect always could. Like, I'm surprised they finally put it in, but okay.
Yeah, well, it's probably more that somebody. Here's a. Oh wait, no, that's not a username. It looked like it was one. I'm guessing some developer did it and made it happen. I'm trying to find that information out in this article, but it's not really there. It would just be weird if... it says researchers at French Civil Aviation University. That's an interesting one.
It is a very interesting name.
And it's an app called CardioLens, which presumably is available now because it's in the Microsoft Store. And it can do it. The only reason I bring this up is because my reaction was, why is this news? It's that I'm gonna guess that even though the Kinect had the advantage of having multiple cameras, the way that the HoloLens can get a lot closer, or normally would be a lot closer to your face, or to someone else's face. It's obviously very close to your face if you're using it. And the way that it figures out depth and all of that stuff, I would think that it probably has a better chance of being accurate, whereas the iPhone... I mean, I found that when the iPhone actually looked at when I held the camera in front of my face, it was actually pretty accurate, but then the app changed to have you put your finger over the camera.
Oh, yeah.
And it did it that way, and it was way off every time. I don't know why they did that.
The Kinect was in the ballpark, but that was being able to look at you from far away.
Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, that happened. The GitHub survived the biggest DDoS attack. I don't know why I was having trouble with that. DDoS attack ever recorded, apparently.
Yeah, I saw that.
This one I don't know a whole lot about, but I like to mention when a company survives malicious attacks or activity along these lines, in the same sense that I praised LastPass back in the day when I liked them more, for basically telling everybody immediately that a hack attempt happened, and encourage everybody to change their passwords, even though there was no breach. They were proactive about it, and it really makes you feel like as bad as their customer support is, which is why I'm frustrated with them. That and just does not work as well as it used to for some reason. Aside from that, I like when I feel like I can trust a company with my information, because that's pretty rare. But not quite. Well, I don't know, along the lines of rare in terms of getting customer support that is decent. But so that happened. There was some news about a giant virus that I want to talk about, but I think we're going to save that for later, because It's
Yeah,
a
I want
long
to talk
one.
about that. Yeah.
And that's kind of it, except for a bunch of legal stories that maybe we'll get to next week. There's a bunch of weird stuff that happened in a crossover between technology and our legal system. A lot of suits were concluded or settled or turned away and dismissed that have some interesting ramifications or are just really weird.
I can't wait for AI court.
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that, for a reason that I will just leave alone because that's going to be a longer story. But I will bring this up when it makes sense more to talk about it. But that is something. I mean, like that is actually being tested. So
AI judges hopefully won't rape children.
well, they're finding. We're talking about Roy Moore. Is that what we're talking about?
Little dig at him, yeah.
Okay. They've actually found that in many cases, I mean, people are not happy about this, but they found in many cases that they're not biased. Imagine that. But that they tend to conclude on the evidence, and that it actually has worked quite well.
Wow.
So I don't think I want a computer to judge me necessarily. I think they need like a proper process where it's kind of like probably someone is reviewing it, but that there's a way to ensure that it's actually fair.
That would be interesting, actually.
And I think it should be operating on multiple algorithms. I mean, it is because it's an AI. It's not one algorithm, but I mean, like I guess multiple AIs that think a little differently in terms of how things
like a racist AI and.
Maybe not that, but that might be useful if it's not used for the actual judgment, because it could be a situation where we want to identify what someone who is racist would conclude, so that if that happens, that AI, the case can be run through the AI and determine if there was any bias, if evidence wasn't presented in the way that it should be, or if there's like any reason for determining an appeal to figure out if racism or any kind of bigotry entered into any decision or the way that the case was presented.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think that's a better use of it initially than like having people be able to opt in. I hope it's an opt-in situation, but opt into an AI judge. But if I were a minority and I saw the data that has come out so far, I would be like, yes, please. And I mean, unless you get somebody who is a minority judge who is not, against their own race. It's tough. You never really know what people's biases are.
That's true.
But you do know a computer doesn't have one in most cases. And
unless the programmer was racist.
Yeah, the thing is too, like, if it should be a situation where you don't even need the lawyers, where you can just input the evidence. You have a certain amount of time for lawyers to input the evidence. Everybody gets to look at what went in, and then the computer just processes it and says, okay, this is what's happening to you. I don't know if that's necessarily a good idea. I don't know if the AI should be sentencing anybody, but having it determine a guilt percentage or something like that.
That would be interesting.
That factors into the decision, or is at least shown to. I wonder if an AI, unbiased AI, presents this to the judge after the case has even been heard, and it's saying, this is why I made this determination, and let's say the judge wants to rule guilty because that's just in his or her personality. And the AI says, this is not a situation in which that makes sense. If they would take that into account or not. I mean, it would certainly help with an appeal.
Yeah, no, certainly.
If they make that admissible and like a real part of the process. But I don't think we can just dump humans right now.
No, not yet.
But there's definitely a lot more panic around this. I think maybe we should be less panicked about it. It's just more of like, we should be panicked. People put way too much faith in humans is what it comes down to.
The truth, yeah.
Computers, we're not there yet with AI. Like, AI is not good enough to be running our lives or anything. However, it is, and like if you have a program that it's not a situation where with that, what was that movie that was an adaptation of Isaac Asimov? I think Will Smith was in it. iRobot, yeah, which was not iRobot at all, but they just called it that.
Yeah.
And they put the 3 rules up front and then made a different movie. That one in that movie, which I saw, the AI basically quarantines people because its job is to protect them, and it like goes overboard and misunderstands. That's not a situation that really will happen. It's you don't give computers that kind of power where it isolates people in that way. Like the thing that might happen if that sort of thing were to occur. I mean, no one's gonna give a computer that kind of power in the near future. Like, it takes a long time for these things to get implemented. In the same way, self-driving cars were probably ready to go 5 years ago, but here we are a month out from it just happening in California, and who knows what kind of backlash is going to delay that further in other states or in the way that it operates here. But AI is there's not going to be like a Skynet problem. That is not really, I think, a realistic
yet.
Well, no, it's possible down the line that human corruption will lead in that direction. But I don't think the dangers of AI are the real dangers that AI does present, but won't necessarily take place, are not on the Skynet level. Like, we have a long way to go before that sort of thing is a concern. And that's, exempting the whole time travel thing from it even, which, as far as I'm concerned, is not possible.
Under the way that Terminator has it, yeah.
Well, yeah, definitely under the way the Terminator has it. I love how you have to travel naked.
Yeah.
There's certain things that stick around that would absolutely dissolve.
Yep.
Like, the Terminator's skin, for example.
But only organic tissue can travel back. Or something. They make up so many rules.
Yeah, I don't remember what the rule actually was, but it
had to explain why he aged.
Oh, I don't know why they even bother. Like, if you're gonna like deliberately get the science wrong, not that there's enough science to make the most accurate possible time travel prediction that you can. I've done it 3 times. I'm not saying I invented time travel or anything, but like, I've had to come up with time travel theories based on actual science as we know it, and so I did 3 separate ones that contradict each other with what we have. But you can back it up, is what I'm saying. There's enough to back it up and say, like, oh, this is theoretically possible. So
you make Superman fly back fast and he can go back in time.
I actually looked at one of those things just because I thought that was so silly. But it's, because spin is something to consider. Just the spin of what he did would have, killed everybody. Is what would have happened. So, that definitely would have worked, but I'm like, it made me wonder, like, how does the rotation of the Earth play into our perception of time? What is it, what does spin and rotation and all of that have to do with anything, with causality and whatnot? I haven't talked physics in a while. It's nice. The point being, you can come up with a lot of, legit theoretical ideas for how time travel could work. But there's a difference between that and, I think it's important to understand that, like, none of them are likely to be true, and we're not, and you shouldn't believe any of that stuff. It's just, it's a fun thought experiment, and it might, potentially, depending on, not coming from me at the moment, but coming from somebody who's like an actual physicist, they might discover something useful through that by thinking about ideas that are impractical. A lot of the times that kind of creative thinking can lead to discovering other things, which is one of the reasons I do it sometimes. But it's also like, for parts of the game, I need to come up with, I hate watching films and being able to, or like any CW comic book show. It is just, I yell at the TV whenever Rich and I are watching them. I am not entirely sure why we're still watching them, but because they've gotten really bad. But it's it's like, it just drives me nuts how deliberately wrong they get the science. And like, if you're going to do science fiction, just don't put the science in it if you're going to say something that's definitely wrong.
I don't think I'd call any of those things science fiction.
Yeah, but they do, and they have labs and they talk about science or whatever. And if they could just preface it with, like, this is not the Earth that you know, and it obviously isn't, because they're making up cities and stuff that we know isn't true.
You mean Star City isn't part of the U.S.?
But they talk about they bring in science that we know to ground it,
and they go crazy. Yeah,
it's like I think it's actually problematic because it teaches people that this stuff might be the case, and it is very much not.
I think you're implying that people actually are listening and learning, which most people aren't.
Well, no, but I mean, like when people, if you ask someone what's dark matter who watches these shows and doesn't care about anything else, they're gonna think of it as like some magical energy.
I mean, the hope is that people
dark matter is maybe not what we should be even calling it. It's more accurately talked about as dark gravity usually, and that's very different. And if we're talking about gravity itself is a weak force, so to think of it as something super powerful, which we don't know what it is, so it could be what they say it is in The Flash, but I highly doubt it. It does not add up.
I mean, I would,
make any sense.
While I agree that their use of science fiction is off, I would be shocked if people actually walked away thinking any of this is real.
No, but they might. I don't think they think any of it's real.
Well, not real, but this is actual science. Like the explanations
I don't think they think it's actual science, but they hear stuff that is real science, and when they it's like if you ask people about what the Patriot Act did and what people were how the government's able to spy on them or whatever, which was very clearly explained in the media, but then in TV shows it's quite a bit different than how it actually works. People give the TV show explanation.
Okay,
they're not necessarily thinking about it or caring about it, but when they are confronted with this, they give the wrong thing, and I think that's really problematic.
I think a comic book show is a little bit more innocent than like a CSI.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because a CSI is like messed up juries, or people like expecting it to be a slam dunk evidence, and you're like, that's not how it works.
Yeah. If you want to see I think the worst court show I've ever watched was How to Get Away with Murder. It's like they were not even trying.
Yeah,
it's. I don't know why I watched that for as long as I did. I mean, I stopped after the first season pretty much, but I mean, it is just.
It's
Like, how do I don't think I don't want laws in place to regulate truth in television, but I feel like we need to do something because they should be held to like some standards. You have to fudge it in fiction, and I don't want to hold creativity back, but there's a point where it's like this: you're misinforming people. People will think this can happen. In the same way, it's like the insanity defense. People think that like actually happens regularly.
That's always my backup. If anything ever goes wrong for me, I'm always going to plead insanity.
Yeah, I mean it's like less than 1% of the cases, I believe. It's 1% or less than 1% of the cases.
Yeah, burden of proof is really high, and it's
and even if you do, you end up in an asylum. Go do yourself a favor. Go look up Lorena Bobbitt and what happened to her. That whatever you think happened with the Lorena Bobbitt case, you are probably wrong on many counts. Go look it up.
Wow, some good topics.
She got an insanity plea, by the way. She was one of the few. So that's
it's a deep cut.
There are some reasons I can't talk more about this, but do yourself a favor and look that up, and we will be talking about this thoroughly in the future.
I would like to.
That and all the other things in the 90s that we completely got wrong because we were this whole fake news shit. I don't like it. I don't like the term. I don't like how it's being used to decredit. Is that even a word? Discredit. Thank you. Discredit the media, although some of them do deserve it and some of them are not doing it right. I don't think the label always gets applied to the right people, but whatever. But there is a problem with like actual fake news in our past that is being uncovered now that we have this broad communication medium. But again, another story for another time. Thank you for listening this week. We will talk to you next week. I think that's it. I felt like there was more to say, but I guess it's just bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Supercharged. If you'd like to send in a comment or a question, you can do so on awkward.email. You just go on your web browser to awkward.email. It's actually a website. And you can call or text 509-AWKWARD instead if you'd like to just skip all of that and do it from your phone. Also, if you'd like to check out some of our other shows, we've got a lot of great shows now, and we're having more every day, or, eventually. You can do that on awkwardhuman.com/podcast. Go check it out. We've got a lot of good stuff, and we hope that you'll be listening every week. Thanks.